Hello, everybody. The whole world loved Lucy, and by that I mean Lucille Ball, the star of the most successful television show that ever aired on television, I Love Lucy. Well, we all know that the first husband, Desi Arnaz, loved Lucy, and that her second husband, Gary Morton, loved Lucy, and so did her son and her daughter, and always her public. But she had a special friend who was with her at major and minor events, from the Kennedy Center honors to literally hundreds of at-home backgammon games played in Beverly Hills, Rancho Mirage, Aspen, and New York. The friend is Lee Tannen, and he brings the Lucy he loved to us in his tender, loving book, I Loved Lucy, which opens as a play at the Laguna Playhouse and runs from October 5th through the October 31st. You will meet Lee in a few seconds, but first, this segment of Conversations with Gloria Greer is brought to you by the Camelot Theaters at 2300 Barristo Road in Palm Springs. And this theater brings the finest in film fare from throughout the world to Palm Springs. Art films, documentaries, independent award-winning motion pictures. In addition to the fine films, there is always great food in the Camelot Cafe and delicious cocktails and appetizers prepared by Hector upstairs in the cinema bar. For further information, phone 760-325-6565. It's Camelot. You know, I can think of no finer introduction of Lee than to read what Lucy Arnaz wrote in this from I Loved Lucy by Lee Tannen. This is just part of her opening. I shall now read it. I just finished reading I Loved Lucy. Bravo, congratulations. I couldn't put it down, and I couldn't wait to tell you so. What a refreshing piece of entertainment, and what a wonderful look through the keyhole at this very unique, complicated woman. I don't know how you were able to capture her so accurately, but what a great, fun, compassionate realization of who this legend really was, and a more perfect portrait of the lost Lucy years. I cannot imagine being drawn, even by me. It had me in tears. Delicious. And she signs it Lucy Arnaz, and she says even more. You must have been thrilled when she wrote this forward.
I was, because I had not asked her to do it. There were so many Lucy books coming out at that time, 2000, 2001, and so I didn't want to ask her. Yeah. And she read The Galleys, which I gave her as a courtesy. She was in London doing a musical at the time. I hadn't heard from her in weeks. I thought, oh my God, she hates this. She hates this. She's calling her lawyer, and that's going to be the end of I Love Lucy. Instead, she called me one night. She was in tears, and she said, I'd love to write something for it. I said, great. And I didn't even see it really until it came out. She sent it right to the publisher.
It's really amazing, and I love the very end, which you'll have to get the book to read, when she says, after all, she was only human.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and this book, you know what's so amazing about this book is the way you really, it isn't like any other biography that I have read, because it's really incidents in your life with Lucy. And in great detail. Yeah,
the interesting thing you said, that it's not like any biography. I say in the foreword that most people who wrote about Lucy never met Lucy.
Yeah.
You know, as most biographers is the case, they write about their subject, but they very rarely meet the subject. Mine was a unique piece because I knew the subject, and I chose to just take the last 10 years of her life, which were the years that I knew her, and to write about those lost Lucy years, as Lucy Arnaz calls them.
Yeah, and actually there are years that no one really interviewed her, and it was not written about.
Yeah.
And you do it tenderly, sensitively.
Thank you.
And with great honor.
Thank you.
Know? Absolutely. Okay, you met her as a child, right?
Yeah, I met her when I was 10 years old, when she married into my family, and it's really complicated how we're related. I can give you a little shot. I talk about it in the play. She's my father's cousin's wife's brother's wife.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so it's like a second cousin 18 times removed.
Yeah.
In the Jewish religion, we call it mishpucha, family. So she became part of our family when I was 10 years old, and I had a chance to meet her in the Bronx, where I was growing up, shortly after she married Gary.
Yeah, and then years later you became great friends. I know you frequently visited her right here in the desert.
Yeah.
And there's a wonderful picture of you with Lucy. I don't know if that was in Beverly Hills or here, but Lorraine, if we could see that wonderful first picture. Oh, well, I'm sure it'll come up.
There are pictures of us all over.
I know it, but I love it. It's on the cover. It's right here.
Oh, that's the cover is Beverly Hills outside of the guest house.
Yeah. Okay, there we are.
Yeah, that's the cover of the book, and that's to the right. There is to our right. There is the guest house where I stayed, and in the background is the main house, and that's Lucy drinking what she called a slushy, which was really just a frozen margarita, but she didn't want to use the word margarita because she fooled herself into thinking she wasn't drinking booze.
Of course.
But it had a lot of booze in it.
You know what surprised me when you read this book, and you're describing, and you do it so well, and very often she had her hair in rollers because there was nobody there except maybe you, and Gary was playing golf. And that surprised me, because toward her later years, which come out in the book, she really didn't want to go out a lot. She really didn't want to see the public that much.
Yeah.
I think she had to always felt she had to look beautiful.
Yeah, she became very reclusive, especially in California. When she moved to New York and got her apartment, we kind of, a bunch of us got her out to the theater and restaurants, and she loved that. But in California, she pretty much stayed ensconced behind the walls of Beverly Hills or Rancho Mirage.
Yeah, there's some wonderful, wonderful pictures. And I'm just wondering, there's a wonderful picture of her which was very young and very beautiful, which even the I Love Lucy, she didn't really look like this.
That's the last photo she gave me. She actually dug that up about 4 weeks before she died.
Yeah.
I don't think she'd seen that picture in 50 years. And I was out the house and she gave me that, but that's the last picture that she ever signed, at least for me.
Well, let's go into then how you became friendly again. Here you had been a child, and suddenly you're an adult, and for some reason, she's calling you to spend time with her, to play backgammon with her, and
well, I was 10 years
you're
old
like
when
family.
I was 10 years old when I first met her, and then 20 years went by because she was doing her show. And then in 1980, when she wasn't doing the show anymore, I was coming back with my partner from Hawaii, and Helen, who is Gary's sister, who was kind of the one who made the arrangement for us, I said to Helen, I would love to just meet Lucy again.
But you were a great fan of hers.
Oh, yeah, I was a great fan of hers from the time I Love Lucy came out when I was 5 years old. So I was a great fan way before she came into the family. But I wanted to meet her. I wanted to get a chance to meet her because when I was 10, I met her for an hour and a half and I didn't say a single word. Not a single word.
Was it because you were so,
Totally starstruck. Totally. I remember rehearsing in the elevator going up how I was going to greet her. And it didn't matter because I saw that red hair, that shock of red hair, and I just was dumbfounded. So I wanted to kind of let her see that I, was grown up now. But actually, when I met her again in 1980, it was almost the same thing. She terrorized me in the most loving way. She had a way of she X-rayed you with those eyes, and she queried you, and you better be on your toes. And
well, what do you think it was about you and your partner, Tom, that made her feel so close?
Oh, great question. I think I think she was having an estranged relationship in a sense with her kids. I mean, maybe estranged is too strong. It was tough going. It was tough being her child for obvious reasons. And I think, especially with Desi, her son, at that time, there were some problems. And here I came along, and I had that same. It was like being a son without the mother-son baggage.
Yeah.
She was able to see me as a son, and I was able to see her as a mother.
Really?
I was having some issues with my mother as well, whose name was Lucille, and who had red hair. So, you could put the two and two together there. But I think we came into each other's lives at a time that was just very fortuitous for both of us. She was retired and looking to find interesting people. I was interesting, I think, and I was looking. I mean, just the fact that she took me back into her life and into her home was unbelievable to me. So.
And it was really quite constant. And the car, you were with her when she bought her car, which you now have.
I wasn't with her when
I think we have a picture of you. I know we do. There you are.
Yeah, I got the car when she died. I was given the car. That's a car that she used mostly in Palm Springs. It was a Buick LeBaron convertible, Chrysler LeBaron convertible that she used, and it had very little miles on it. And I had the car, and that's a shot actually of me with the car in Hawaii. We shipped it to Hawaii, but that was a car that she tooled around in, and when she did drive, she was a terrible driver. She was a terrible driver, terrible driver. She had no sense of direction whatsoever, and it was very hard to correct her and to tell her she was driving the wrong way, because with Lucy you didn't correct her. So I remember going miles and miles out of our way on Sunset Boulevard and finally saying to her, I think the sun is setting in the wrong place. We're supposed to be going west, and we're already almost in Palm Springs.
She was really manipulative, wasn't she?
Yeah, that's a great word. She was she was manipulative, actually, which was very much the way Lucy Ricardo was, in a way, because when I first met her, I thought, oh, no way she's like Lucy Ricardo. But as I got to know her, she was manipulative. She could make you do things with a laugh, or she could make you do things if she cried a bit, and she was never wrong. It was very hard for Lucy to admit she was wrong.
You know, another interesting thing that you do in the book, this is fascinating, is various things would happen. Lucy would be doing something in real life, and then you would compare it to a scene out of I Love Lucy.
Yeah, like when she drove one day in Beverly Hills with me, and she wanted to parallel park. I don't think she's ever parallel parked. And I said, Lucy, I'll park. No, I'll park.
With her deep voice.
Yeah, and we tied up traffic for about 20 minutes. I mean, it was a I Love Lucy episode. There were many episodes like that. You know.
Do you think that Desi kind of just picked that out of being with her and knowing how she?
I think the writers did. I think I think she wasn't inherently funny. She didn't think funny. She really didn't think funny. She said that herself. She didn't think funny. She knew how to deliver the goods. That was her expression. And it was the truth. She knew how to, if somebody gave her a script. But in time, she became almost like Lucy Ricardo in many ways.
And the fans, her reaction to the fans, she loved them, and yet there were times she didn't want them.
Well,
I guess everybody.
She lived in Beverly Hills on a street corner without any gate, without any guard dog. I mean, it said beware of dog, but the dog was a 7-pound French poodle who would have licked anybody to death.
We've got a picture, I think, of Lucy with the poodle. I don't know what happened to it. We have it somewhere. So while we talk, maybe it'll come up on the screen.
So the fans would knock on her door, would slip pictures under her door. Yeah, that's Tinker. She had 4 dogs named, and she named them all Tinker. Each one that died, she got the exact same duplicate dog and named the dog Tinker. That was Tinker number 4, and that was about 1983. And but she loved her fans. No, she always did, and always gave autographs. When she was out there in public, she was very kind to her fans. Very kind to her fans.
And we're going to come back to it, but one of the things that you did do with her, and I had the pleasure, not of that night, but of going another year, was the Kennedy Awards, which were so spectacular. Yeah,
that was incredible. Absolutely, very blessed. It was an incredible weekend. And she always said, though, and it's in the book and the play, she always was afraid of that award. She said, you get a Kennedy Center honor, you die soon after. Check it out. I'm telling you, every year somebody dies after they get it. She got hers in 1986. She died 2.5 years later. We kid about that a little bit as the years went on, but she was very, very proud of that award.
Well, the year I went back, Irene Dunn was one of the recipients, and she became so ill that she was not able to be at the gala.
See, there you go.
She was at when I went, which was different than what you described. The State Department dinner was the night before the reception at the White House. And she went to that, and then she was ill, and then
see,
very sad.
Lucy was right. I did say we're laughing.
I was with Frederick Lowe and Alan J. Lerner, and so. Yeah.
So never get a Kennedy Center honor. You get one, you die soon after.
Yeah, and when we come back, we've got some beautiful photographs, or at least one of the 4 of you and Gary and Lucy and Tom, and she's all dressed for the awards. And we'll be back in a second. Okay, I mentioned the Kennedy Center honors, so tell me about that.
Well, that was, like I said, one of the most exciting weekends of my life, and so blessed that Lucy asked me to join her. You know, from the invitations that are sent from the White House, from the Reagans, the State Department.
We've got a great picture of the 4 of you, so keep talking. I'm sure it'll come up.
It's just wonderful. The State Department dinner on Friday night, the Kennedy Center honors on Saturday night, the brunches. Lucy was very, very excited about it. She was also very sad at that time. Desi had died 5 days earlier from lung cancer, 5 days earlier, and she was fired the week before from her show Life with Lucy, which was a very big disaster. So it was a very bittersweet time for her. She was very proud of the award, but at the same time, she had a lot of sadness going on in her life.
But you know, interesting, because even though she was very sad, she was always the star. So she had her hairdresser with her, right?
Oh, yeah.
And her makeup person.
Oh, yeah. And the wigs, and because she didn't wear wigs at home, but she wore wigs when she went out.
Yeah.
And oh, no, she always looked fantastic.
And then she had, because you say it, and I guess the family wasn't upset that you told the truth, and that was the netting under the wig that lifted
well,
the
that's
face.
because she wouldn't have a facelift. She was so afraid of that.
But I think that's amazing that you could do that. I got to go right home and dry.
Yeah, well, it gave her a big headache, and she couldn't wait to get home and get it off. But yeah.
And then, of course, the big love of her life was not the glamour. The big love was backgammon.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember when Pips was open, and she'd be there playing all the time.
Yeah, well, Lucy was very obsessed with games, loved games, card games, word games, scrambling 5-letter words. But when she started learning backgammon in the late 70s, when she stopped doing her show, that was a major addiction. She had tables in every room, and you wouldn't befriend her if you didn't know how to play backgammon. I had to learn how to play backgammon, otherwise I would have been out. Simply out. Everything was around the backgammon table, 9, 10 hours a day. You said in the intro, hundreds, I would say tens of thousands of backgammon games over 10 years. Seriously, amazing.
And they were all over, because she had homes all over, Aspen, New York.
Palm Springs, Beverly Hills, and then when she was traveling, she had a portable set with her, and when we were in airplanes, even if it was commuter planes, little planes, with a room like this, we had a backgammon board going on, and cabs, she would have played in the subway if she took a subway. Chauffeured limousines, no matter where and how she traveled with a backgammon board.
You know, I don't want to give away something from the play or something from the book, but to me it was quite interesting, and I don't know if you'd share it with our viewers, and that is what was found, that she had the letters, the stack of letters that she kept always.
From Desi, you mean? The love letters. Yeah, when she died, Lucy Arnaz, her daughter, and myself went through her bathroom in Beverly Hills just to clean out things, and we were opening up drawers just to take out makeup and things. And this big manila envelope tied up with string fell out of a back drawer, and we opened it up, and there were love letters 40, 50 years old from Desi when he was away, when they were separated by business or other things. She never stopped loving Desi. She never, in my opinion anyway.
Well, and she and Gary, and I knew Gary too, and he was fun and sweet, but he adored golf, and obviously she didn't.
No.
And I presume he didn't adore backgammon.
No. And he hated the snow, and she loved the snow. He hated the change of seasons. She loved the change of seasons. He was pretty much 180 from Desi.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was.
Well, why do you think she married him?
Because he was 180 from Desi. Because, I mean, I'm not telling secrets out of school here. I mean, you know, Desi was a drunk and a womanizer, and very talented and very smart and very good looking. And Gary, even though he was in my family, was not very smart and not very talented and not very good looking. But the one thing he did was he didn't fool around with women or drink. And that meant a lot to Lucy.
Yeah.
She told him, it's in the book, she told him before they got married. She actually told his mother before they got married. She said, I will give him country clubs and cars and golf clubs and whatever he wants, but if I even see him looking at another woman, I'll kill him.
That must have been very hard for her with Desi.
Yeah.
And yet, not only that she loved him, but she appreciated the genius of what he created with Desilu Studios. Do you think that, and I know they paid tribute to Desi at the Kennedy Center Awards, did she play a part in instigating that, or were the producers wise enough to do that?
No, she was very upset. I talk about it in the play and the book. She thought he should have gotten the Kennedy Center honor with her. Right. That year, particularly, Hume Cronin and Jessica Tandy won it together. Yeah. And I was in total agreement with her. She thought that her and Desi should have gotten it together. And they should have, because he was the genius behind I Love Lucy. And I don't think people recognized how genius he was, actually. No, they always thought she was the businesswoman, but it wasn't true. He was the businesswoman.
Well, and also even creatively. I mean, the 3 cameras, he did things, and people within the industry all respect what he did.
Absolutely. The whole 3-camera, people don't know, shooting on film rather than shooting. They wanted to shoot on kinescope in New York.
So bad.
And he said, let's shoot on film. They actually started with 4 cameras, which most people don't know. The first few shows were 4 cameras, then they went to 3 cameras, and he saw the value of film in later years for rerun purposes, and look how well the films stand up, you know, 60 years, it's almost 60 years later.
Yeah, well, they do. They certainly do. I just think it's wonderful that you wrote this book, and everybody who reads it will certainly get a different, they'll get to know Lucy, and Lucy in her later years, as you saw her, and you saw her as she was. This was the real human being. Yeah.
Warts and all, as we say, you know.
Yeah. And I imagine that the play will do the same thing. So I'm very, how did you do the play? I mean, what?
Well, you know, I never really had intention of writing the book. I started just writing my memories, my memoirs, just as a journal, and it became a book because my partner actually said, there's a book here. The same thing happened with the play. I never thought it would turn into a play. A producer read the book and thought that would be a great play, and he said, why don't you try writing a play? And so the play is basically an adaptation of the book with two characters.
But, you know, we were talking about the play at Laguna Playhouse, and they do very fine work.
They do.
What is your next intent for I Loved Lucy, the play?
Well, if it works well there, which I hope it does, knock on wood, I'd like to tour it around the country. I think the world loves Lucy. You know, people say, do you want to bring it to New York? Of course it would be nice to bring it to New York. It's my hometown and it's terrific, but I would love to do more California work, Florida. People write me from the Midwest. They'd love to have it there. So if it works out, I'd love to just tour it around the country for a while.
Was it difficult to find a Lucy?
Very.
I'm sure.
Because every Lucy, potential Lucy, came in trying to do an imitation of Lucy, and she's inimitable. Yeah. You cannot imitate her, and I don't want an imitation. I was looking for someone to capture the essence of Lucy, and especially because it's the Lucy that nobody knows. So you don't want the Lucy Ricardo, you don't want the Lucy that was on, you want the Lucy that was home and private and get that. So we have a great New York actress and a great New York actor playing Lee, and it's wonderful that they're not really known because they could really inhabit the characters.
I can't wait to see it, and I shall.
Good.
Now, you are signing books at the...
I am. It's called Just Fabulous. Is that a great name?
I love it for a bookstore.
Just Fabulous for a Lucy book on Sunday, September 26th, I guess this weekend, from 3 to 5. And they're on Palm Canyon Road, or Palm Canyon Drive in Palm Springs. And I'll be there, and the book will be there, and it should be a lot of fun.
And you'll be signing autographs?
I will, as long as people pay the $22.95, I'll sign.
You know, you have beautiful color photographs, but they're not in here.
Yeah, I know.
And the publisher...
Call St. Martin's Press and tell them, you know, it's the recession. Everybody's holding back, and it's, I guess, cheaper to do black and white. But yeah, they're great color shots.
Well, maybe if it really sells well, they'll reissue it with the color
Or
pictures.
come to Laguna Playhouse and see it in live in full color.
Okay, and they call LagunaPlayhouse.com?
LagunaPlayhouse.com, exactly, for tickets, and they're online, and it's from October 5th to the 31st, and you are invited anytime. And I thank you so much for today. It was absolutely terrific meeting you and getting a chance to talk Lucy.
And I enjoyed it, and I certainly loved Lucy like everybody else.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much. And I want to thank you, the audience, for being with us. And don't forget, you can catch this show, and you can tell your friends to catch it on Desert Cities On Demand. That's 110 on your Time Warner dial, and also on San Diego On Demand, 144 in San Diego. You know, you can also follow me on Twitter, where I am Small Scribe, and you can follow me on Facebook. And please visit my website. It's www.gloriagreer.com. Love to see you there, and love to see you here, right here on our show next time.